Hey guys, this is Austin. Chrome OS. Ever since I got to take a look at the very first developer model, the CR48, all the way back in ye olden 2011, the promise was absolutely there. Get rid of all the legacy stuff of Mac OS and Windows in favor of something which is cleaner, simpler, which just works. I feel like I'm trying to say that like Chrome OS is like the vegan option of laptops. It's hard to argue with in theory. You've got a clean build of Linux with just the Chrome browser on top, and realistically you can get a lot of what you need done inside of Chrome, especially considering that most of these Chromebooks have very low-end specs. We're talking Intel Celeron processors or Rockchip processors. I mean, you don't need a lot of power to simply just run a web browser. And then there's the idea of having a more lockdown system can actually be a real benefit. I mean, sure, you probably know that you shouldn't really go visit sketchysite.org, but there are tons and tons of Chromebooks in schools. Kids might not necessarily have that same level of forethought and thinking behind not opening every attachment and downloading every weird emoji pack that you can see. Well, I guess they do it on their phones, so, you know. And really think about it. Back in 2011.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Black of 2011. This year was a huge year for YouTube.
There were a fair few things you could do inside a web browser. These days, web apps have gotten much more powerful. And I know personally, I can pretty much do everything on a day-to-day basis purely just inside of browsers. So things like Spotify, Google Docs, Gmail, all these things run just fine on Chrome OS. And arguably, that's sort of the main selling point. Chrome really is simple, clean, and elegant. It's the vegan option of PCs. But of course, the question is, can you actually do everything you need inside Chrome OS? Now, I've gone on and off with Chromebooks over the last few years. In fact, I actually originally started working on this video last year with this Asus Chromebook. However, I didn't really actually finish the video. But today, with the brand new Pixelbook Go coming out, is Chrome OS good enough, or should you just ignore your plant-based diet and go straight to being a carnivore, aka a Windows user or a Mac user? I like that this metaphor went from like a little joke to like the entire purpose of my video, and I'm kind of okay with that. Honestly, just stay off the internet. That's really the best advice. And Chrome OS is the exact opposite way that you want to do that. Let's start with the Pixelbook Go itself. This is the first time that Google has brought out their own first-party laptop in a couple years, if you don't count the Pixel Slate, and you shouldn't. And the nice thing here is that this hardware feels very, very premium. Now, the nice thing about this is that a lot of cheaper Chromebooks feel a little, shall we say, cheapy, whereas this is still super thin, it's super lightweight. The important thing here is that in the hand, it feels like a solid piece of laptop hardware. I feel pretty confident in this lasting quite a while. It's made out of a finely painted magnesium, which is one of the things that helps it to be not only lightweight. One of the interesting things here is that it's got this sort of washboard texture. You're also getting an excellent keyboard with great travel, and honestly, it's actually one of the quietest laptop keyboards I've ever used. And around on the sides, you actually get a pretty solid selection of ports for a Chromebook. A pair of USB-C ports, which can not only handle power, but they also can do data, as well as each can handle a 4K display, which I tested, and it actually works. Not that lots of people with Chromebooks are probably using multiple 4K displays. Is that a little unrealistic of a use case? No, it is certainly not perfect. The specs are, shall we say, not exactly blisteringly fast. Now, I have the base model here, which comes with a dual-core Core M3 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, as well as 64 gigs of storage. And considering that we're just web browsing, it's fine. But at $650, you're definitely paying a lot for this design, and you're not spending a lot of money on the actual spec inside. The screen is also fine. It's a 1080p 13-inch touchscreen, and while the brightness and the viewing angles are fine, the bezels are a little bit thick on this guy, and something I really miss from the original Pixelbook is the ability to actually use a full 2-in-1 design. This guy just does, I mean, that's fine, it's a normal laptop, but I just kind of expect a little bit more, especially considering just how thin and light this laptop is. You actually could legitimately use it as a pretty useful 2-in-1, but you can't. Wah, wah, wah. Honestly, my biggest problem with this hardware is just the price. At $650 for the base model, that's a lot of money for a Chromebook. And this thing gets incredibly expensive as you start to add upgrades like a Core i5, more storage, there's a 4K display option, which is like $1,400. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Wait,
$1,400. Okay, no. The entire laptop costs $1,400 when you upgrade, but It's very expensive. There are other Chromebooks on the market which have very similar specs for far less money. Take this $650 option and compare it to this Asus Chromebook, which only costs a little less than $400 for the same Core M3, same memory, same storage, slightly bigger screen. It's kind of hard to justify. Don't get me wrong, this is still probably the nicest Chromebook that you can buy, but at this kind of money, you're not just competing with $200 and $300 Chromebooks. You're competing with full-on Windows laptops, which really begs the question, if the hardware is largely there, is Chrome OS? Spoiler, it's complicated, and it depends on your use case, and whether or not you need to do real work. The easy answer is, actually a lot of people can use a Chromebook every day, provided you do have one with at least sort of decent specs like this guy. Now, in addition to the fairly wide range of web apps out there, you also do have access to most Android apps using the Play Store. Now, of course, these are still Android apps running on a Chromebook, which means that the quality is maybe not quite as nice as, say, oh, I don't know, a native Mac or Windows app. Twitter's a really big offender. It looks fine when you have it sort of squished to the side of the screen, but the second you go full screen with it, it looks ridiculous. There are a few examples of apps which do run really well on Chrome OS. I know Adobe's Lightroom in particular has been designed, obviously it's based on the Android app, but there are a lot of optimizations specifically for a large screen keyboard trackpad for Chrome OS. Then you've got some other stuff which is nice. So there's a full file browser, and there's even a fairly rudimentary version of Linux that you can install, which while not full-blown or anything, is definitely a nice little feature. Sometimes though, there are just no ways around the limitations of a Chrome OS device. Now, sure, if you can do a lot of basic tasks on a Chromebook, more power to you, but I think the issue here is that a lot of people can do a lot of this stuff on mobile devices, such as phones and tablets. Really, when you come to a PC, a lot of times that's because you need a specific feature. Whether you're doing CAD or video editing or you're doing Photoshop, all of these things, generally speaking, require a fairly beefy PC. This is where your specific use case really matters. It isn't 2011 anymore, and Windows and Mac, but specifically Windows 10, has made a ton of strides towards sort of fending off the Chromebook onslaught. Windows has absolutely filled a lot of Chromebook because all it needs to do is run a web browser. Nowadays though, Windows 10 laptops have actually come down a lot in price, and while a lot of the laptops have pretty crappy hardware and not much in the way of screens or specs or anything, but the important thing is they're about the same price as a Chromebook, and generally speaking, of course, you're getting a full version of Windows as opposed to a more limited operating system in Chrome OS. Speaking of things that you can't do on a Chromebook, this video is actually part of an editing challenge between a Mac and a PC, and between Justine and Linus. And as of recording this, I have no idea who won and which actually was the edit that we used to post this video. I'm actually very curious to see how this video came out, and if it sucks, you can blame them.
Justine will probably win though, because Final Cut's better.
Final Cut is better. Oh wait, no, I can't say that. Goodbye. Thanks for editing my video. Hopefully it wasn't that long. And I believe in you. You're gonna win this. You've definitely got this. I believe in you.
Justine.
I'm talking to everyone who's watching this, whoever actually ends up editing this. I have no idea. And make sure to make me look good.